112-77. Actually, 88 shots for the Thunder. Wing right, Robertson penetrates and pitches. Corner right to Jones. Perry dials long distance, can't connect. And the Thunder tonight, 2 of 20 from beyond the arc. Bonner clears, and the Spurs dribble out game 2. After a 17-point rout in game 1, they come up even bigger in game 2 to go up 2-0 in this 2014 Western Conference Finals. 112-77 Spurs win this one by 35. So the Thunder now will look to...
That's all I got. Just had to play it. Just tells you who I am, I guess. It is tip-off. I hope you're great today. Let's have some fun. We'll roll through a bunch of NBA news. We'll tell you about Alvin Gentry. We'll look at film study, whether Durant was right. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip-Off. Bye, 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 bye. All right, we will not talk about whether Dwayne Busby gave benefits to players. That is the beauty of my life, is that I don't have to do that anymore. Congratulations to those people who worked very hard on that story. It's very good reporting. It was very well done by 1280 on a reporting standpoint. I was very impressed all day listening to 1280 The Zone on what I thought was maybe for BYU fans not what you wanted to hear, but that's actually not the media's job, and I thought the coverage was pretty fair in kind of not getting caught up so much in it that you're not respecting BYU's integrity, who they are as a program, and what they stand for. Speaking of that, the Grantland short on Sean Bradley is worth a watch. It's about 12 minutes long. It's good. It's interesting. I'm not sure. I'd be really curious, and maybe this is a good Google Plus conversation on Locked On Sports Google Plus page, whether it portray as a member of the LDS Church, do you like the way it portrayed things? And here's why I'm asking. Because the message it basically sent is that Sean's this incredible person who does all of these great things, driven by his faith in his family, and that's more important to him than basketball. But I almost felt like it built, again, this kind of concept, which is if you're a member of the Mormon faith, you're still a little different than anybody else of any other religion. You're a little crazy with this unknown religion, and you can't possibly play basketball and be committed to your church. I hate that narrative, having lived here and have I don't know, I probably shouldn't get into this. But so I had a very mixed emotion. I think it's worth a watch. I'm not sure I'm calling it good. I'm not sure I like the message that I thought came out of it. So I'd be very curious of what you think of it. I hate that message and perception because I think it's really unfair. What's unfortunate is in my opinion, there are lots of cases where it's true. Eli Herring out of BYU, Sean Bradley, it seems to be the way he portrays himself. Often it's guys who it's two parts. Often I think it's guys that just aren't good enough. And so then that's a nice fallback for them because nobody ever wants to say they're not good enough. That's why I also say, like, in the locker room, I'm really on a tangent. I didn't plan to get on today. But on the locker room, I just finished watching that Grantland, by the way. In the locker room after games, players will always say, well, they wanted it more. No, they're better than you. See, but no athlete will ever admit who makes it to the bigs will ever admit that they were better than I was or that I'm not good enough. Because by definition, the fact that they got to that moment, now Sean might be different at 7'6", but for 95% of the guys who get to that moment, there's something really, really special about them with a drive and an unbelievable determination that's unequaled in almost anyone else in the world, and that's why they got there. So when you go ask a player in the locker room after a game, hey, what happened? They're never going to say the other guy was better than me. They're going to come up with these other things, and then we as the fans, well, how could it possibly be that they play harder? Well, they didn't really play harder. They were just better. Spurs were just better last night. So anyway, I don't know. I'd be curious, kind of, on the Sean Bradley. So maybe somebody can post. I'll post it up on Google Plus, and maybe you guys can put a comment section below on it. I'd be really curious to hear what everybody has to say on that. All right, let's get to basketball. I am laughing today on something. I am assuming somebody made a mistake on this, but I would rather believe that somebody was petty and vindictive enough to do this on purpose. Because I love petty and vindictive, as I was when I opened the show with that soundbite today. But I think petty and vindictive is funny. So therefore, I'm hoping that this right here is intentional, because then I think it's trash talk, and I think trash talk can be funny. The ad in this newspaper was, the Upper West restaurant would like to congratulate the Los Angeles Lakers on an amazing playoff run. Now, I get that the chances are that they meant the Clippers, but it's still better if they did it on purpose. So I'm going to believe that the Upper West Side restaurant would like to congratulate the Lakers on an amazing playoff run was something that was a little P&V. Because admit it, if that's the P&V, that's funny. Unless you're a Laker fan, which I think is P&V. All right, here's the other one I loved. Off Google+, don't know how well it's going to come up on your screen. This was a great post by some woman, and it said, stop comparing and just appreciate greatness. 6 boxes. Russell and Wilt in the 60s, Jerry West, Dave DeBusschere, I think that might be Kareem in the 70s, and Julius Erving. 80s, it's obviously Magic and Larry. 90s, it's Michael. 2000s is Kobe, and 2010 is LeBron James. I thought that was cool. All right, quick notes on the NBA playoffs. Spurs were great last night. We did a film study the other day and really showed just without Ibaka how I think there's almost no chance. We'll see. Thunder will get one in Oklahoma City unless they're just broken inside. I don't love the Russell Westbrook on national television walking off the screen, tapping at his head at Kevin Durant. I know Durant is the ultimate warrior. I hate that phrase. The ultimate kind of teammate and great guy out there. I don't like that. I can't imagine he likes that. And I've got to figure that. You ready? Durant's a free agent 2 years. He signs with the Lakers. And he joins Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving with the Lakers in their rebuild. That's my guess. Byron Scott becomes the head coach. He delivers Kyrie Irving. They trade for Kevin Love or just sign him, and they acquire Kevin Durant when Kobe retires in 2 years with that money. It's not coincidental that Durant's free agency starts when Kobe's ends. Now, I listened to Durant's press conference, and I think anybody who heard Durant's press conference would say I'm crazy, and I think Durant right now would say I'm crazy, and I think everybody around Durant would say I'm crazy, but 2 years is a really long time. And when the disappointment of this happens, and that whole environment with Russell and who he is, and I love Russell Westbrook because I love players who play with that unabashed energy, enthusiasm, but there's just a tension there that can't last forever. It's going to wear out at some point in time, and that's my call of when it wears out. And they've had bad luck. Russell got hurt last year. Ibaka got hurt this year. If they don't win it next year, maybe they win it next year and this all goes out the window. But really, if they don't win it next year, they add into a whole new ball of wax Durant's free agency and the pressure on it and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I might be nuts, but I'm the same guy who thinks Carmelo's signing with Miami. So we'll see if any of my crazy theories that are not based on any knowledge inside the league have any truth to them. One note on Miami, Indiana. I think there's something wrong with LeBron. I've watched LeBron enough. I'm a huge LeBron fan. He doesn't look right. Even if you watched that steal the other night, the breakaway, he doesn't rise up and dunk it. They had him guarding C.J. Watson late, which worked, but it's almost as though they're hiding him off something. He didn't score early in that game. His jump shots all in game one hit front rim. I went through and watched his shot attempts. They're not normal. I think he's got a back or a leg issue going on, and the longer that this break might be really important, but keep an eye on that as the series goes. Again, haven't heard that from anyone. That's just my eyes. All right. Yesterday, the Jazz today the Jazz will interview Alvin Gentry, according to reports. Who is Alvin Gentry? He is currently the Clippers, the Clippers assistant coach with Doc Rivers. Prior to that, he was the Phoenix Suns head coach. Let's walk his career. He grew up in a small town in North Carolina. He was a family of 6 with a mom and dad that were married for 63 years. His mom ends up, I believe, passing due to Alzheimer's in her final years. He's been very active in the Alzheimer's community when he's in Phoenix. He's a fabulous young man. He's a fabulous older man. As a young man, he was president of his high school, which was 80% white. Pretty interesting if you think back. He's about 57 years old or so, I believe. Maybe a little younger than that, maybe 55. I'd have to check. Maybe I'll check and get that right. But if you think about that for a second, that tells you a lot. He's been, from my standpoint, I'll tell you, in all my interactions with him, he's always been one of my favorite people. He's 59. He'll turn 60 in November, so he would turn 60 if he were a head coach next year in the NBA. He would turn 60 right as the year starts. Let's back up. He comes out of Appalachian State. He gets a tryout with the Denver Nuggets because David Thompson is his cousin. Thompson was playing for the Nuggets at the time. He befriends Larry Brown, who's the head coach, doesn't make the team, but Brown goes and gets him a assistant coaching job at the University of Colorado. Brown then takes him with him to San Antonio, where he becomes an assistant on the staff of Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford. He actually meets his wife in San Antonio. His wife now of 22 years. He then proceeds to bounce around a little bit. He's with Detroit is his first real head coaching job. He interims in Miami. He interims in Detroit. Then his Detroit team with Grant Hill, 10th in the league offensively, 9th in the league defensively. The next year, they're 4th in the league offensively and 21st in the league defensively. He then ends up with the Clippers. He becomes their head coach. Very young team. He takes them from 31 wins the first year to 39 the next. His first year, they're 18th offensively, 19th defensively. The next year, they're 11th offensively and 19th defensively. But the next year, Brand, Maggette, Lamar Odom, and Michael Olowokandi all get hurt, and he gets fired. Welcome to Donald Sterling's world. He goes to Phoenix, becomes an assistant there for 6 years under D'Antoni. He becomes the head coach when D'Antoni leaves to go to New York. He has Amari and Nash, Richardson, Hill, and Fry. They lose in the Western Conference Finals. They're the number 1 offensive team in the NBA, 23rd defensively. The next year they lose Amari. They still have Nash, Fry, Hill, Dudley. They win 40 games. They're 9th best offensively, but 25th defensively. 9th best the next year, 24th defensively. Nash leaves mid-year. Alvin Gentry is out, and then he goes and works with Doc. So he's a great offensive coach. I mean, you look at that. He's had top 10 offenses twice in Detroit. He had a top 10 offense in L.A. He had 3 years of top 10 offenses in Phoenix. He had a young team in the Clippers that is similar to what he's somewhat dealing with here with the Jazz, so he's worked with that. He's a fabulous guy. He interacts with players well. He does not have a great defensive lineage. Question has to be then whether or not with his year under Doc Rivers, he somehow has picked that up, or that would be an emphasis to him. But that's an interesting interview. He's also being talked about in Memphis. He's also being talked about in Cleveland, where he's got strong ties to David Griffin, who's the new general manager with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that is Alvin Gentry. You know, what's interesting is he's got that Spurs tie, and you just watch the Spurs and the way they're playing, and on one level, everyone's a copycat league, and if everyone's doing the same thing, is it really the right thing to go do the exact same thing they're doing? But they do it better than everyone, and you wonder whether or not it's replicable. You wonder whether or not you should just go hire somebody who's got some sort of San Antonio background in the mix, who's got some tie to Popovich, who's been around that program, understands the detail they run things with. You watch them do things, they're just beautiful. And how well they run it, what they do. It's obviously having Tony and having Ginobili and having Duncan, but they just do. I mean, you're watching them last night and you're thinking to yourself, if you don't hire somebody with that tie, you're nuts. Now, there aren't many left. Budenholzer signed last year. Brent Brown went a year ago. It's interesting. I mean, you wonder, I said this earlier, you wonder if we were doing this search a year ago, I think it'd be a lot quicker. There were just so, there's Steve Kerr, Steve Clifford, Mike Budenholzer, and Brent Brown. We're all out there that were Spurs ties. Clifford's a Van Gundy tie, but they were all Dennis Lindsey ties. Now that list is more limited. I mean, now you're kind of looking to. Jim Boylan was on their bench, and I don't think that's going to happen. Don't jump off the cliff. It's too bad, actually. I go back to where I started with on the Jim Boylan thing. If he had been a head coach at Dayton and done all his wacky things, I think we'd all be looking at him as a lead candidate for this job with his background, his track record of Indiana and San Antonio, and who he is. But I just it seems like the landscape is difficult for that to happen here, which is he'll probably be a head coach somewhere and he'll probably be pretty good in the NBA. So there aren't a lot of guys with Spurs bench ties, so then you probably start trying to run down Spurs D-League coach ties, or you try to run down a list of guys who are around Danny Ferry, who was with San Antonio. I mean, it's hard to find how you find those guys if you really just become such a believer that the Spurs do things differently than anybody else. You're running through Austin Toro's head coaches, and I don't know who else there just aren't a lot of people left on that bench, or you're trying to find people that are around Pop with Kerr signed. It's hard to find, so you'd have to. That's where you're probably, if that's what you believe. I'm sure we'll walk down that road a little bit and see if they just understand things better. I mean, there's just a certain point where a coach has got certain principles that things have to be done in these three ways, and that's the essence, and maybe that's really the key here. I don't know on this coaching front. Let's continue. Other news on the coaching front of things: Lakers to interview Byron Scott. Shaw's name is not going away from New York. Now, it's either the media or there's something to it. Part of the problem is Denver would want compensation. The Knicks can only give him cash or draft picks, and the Knicks don't have draft picks. But I wouldn't be surprised. I still think Brian Shaw's the head coach in New York. Again, I don't know anything. This is just reading tea leaves. Dave Yeager's interviewing with Flip Saunders today in Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if that deal's not done by the end of the week. Memphis is going to be looking for a head coach. The reports are George Karl, Jeff Van Gundy, or Alvin Gentry. Steve Kerr did say in an interview that he interviewed with 5 teams contacted him. I promise you we were one of them. So that's the latest on the coaching front of things. I would just about rest, this is tongue-in-cheek, promise you that the Jazz will hire their head coach next week because I'm out of town. I will be gone all of next week. My dad is turning 75. We are going to go be with him for his 75th birthday and spend the week with him on a pretty fabulous, it was supposed to be a surprise. So I'm saying it now because he doesn't watch this very often, but it's no longer a surprise. But I will be out all of next week. It's funny, by the way, when you're planning a surprise and you do this thing every day, one of our concerns was that my dad would suddenly be like, well, why didn't he do his podcast this morning? What's he doing? Why didn't he do his podcast? And he'd call me and be like, why didn't, well, I'm out of town because I'm planning to surprise you somewhere where you're going to be in 2 days. So luckily I don't have to do that. So I'll be out all of next week, which means we'll probably hire a head coach. And we'll probably have Marcus Smart, Aaron Gordon, and everybody else in for workouts. Warriors are trying to get big on the Kevin Love. And again, this is the whole game. Minnesota's got to convince the Lakers that somebody out there is willing to make a move enough for Love that the Lakers will trade the 7th pick of the draft to Minnesota for Kevin Love, and probably at this point something else because the Lakers didn't have a good enough lottery day. Probably some other future pick. Warriors are talking about David Lee, Harrison Barnes, and the 2015 pick. They would have to wait till after the draft to do that deal, and I'm sure Minnesota would want Klay Thompson to get that deal done. All right, I've watched a bunch of Jabari. Now, I'm asking you to do me a favor, okay? I am discussing a basketball player, not a member of the LDS Church. Okay, most of the majority of this audience is Mormon. I get that Jabari is very exciting to you because he's a Mormon player. I got it, okay? Like no different than somebody comes from my hometown, I get fired up about him, and I like him more. So, but I'm not doing that. I'm looking at NBA player. So there's a lot of things to love about Jabari. I mean, he grabs the rebound, goes coast to coast at that size with his dribble. It's sick. Jabari goes and gets in the post at 6'8" on the collegiate level. He's awesome. Do either of those translate to the NBA? Okay, I'm not watching Jabari as a college basketball player. I'm only watching him with the sole purpose of, Does he play in the NBA? And yes, he does. Okay. But how does he play in the NBA? I'm honestly having a difficult time right now trying to figure out what he does. So he's 6'8". He's a heavy 3. Right? I mean, again, don't get mad. Don't get upset with me. But what's he listed at? 6'8", what? 245? Is that what he's listed at? Is that 235? He's heavier than that, by the way. How many threes are there in the NBA that are 6'8", 240? Carmelo? Okay, general rule, and I think that this might not work. By the way, I think he might be good enough that this doesn't work for him. General rule I have is be very careful when you're looking at a player and you end up with one comp. Like when you look at Kendall Marshall and you tell me, well, he's Andre Miller. Okay, well, there's only the next player after him's out of the league. Now, Jabari's not going to be out of the league. Don't misunderstand the insanity level I'm going here. But he's 6'8". What is that? So that's a 3. Then answer me this. How often do we post up threes? Way is 6'8", 230. Jabari is 6'8", 240 and not going down. Right? Don't misunderstand this. I am not suddenly saying, but I'm just being honest. I'm watching him right now. I'm going to do everything I can to get this video done before I go out of town tomorrow. I'm having a hard time. Okay, why? Because, one, I'm trying to figure out the best part of his game is his post-up game. It is awesome, but I can't see it. Like, are we posting threes? So let's go that he's playing Oklahoma City. He's being guarded by Cephalosha. First of all, the threes in the NBA are big. Most of the threes are 6'9". He kills Cephalosha in the post, but then Ibaka and Kendrick Perkins are coming to help. He's not getting that shot off. Right? With me on this? He's not a great passer. Never been asked to. He's got to learn that skill. I'm sure he can. Here's what I've yet to see out of him. And maybe this is because Duke doesn't run it. Same thing. I gave Wiggins a pass because Self doesn't give him the ball and do a lot of these things. And I have a concern. Actually, watching the Sean Bradley thing, I had a thought on Wiggins that had me concerned. It might just be a strength issue, but I'll share that in a second. On Jabari, I have yet to see it. Maybe I've only watched, let me be careful about this, I've only watched November and December. I haven't gone to January and February. Try to watch 5 or 6 games. I'm not a full scout, but I'll watch, or a half of games, and I'll watch November, a December, a January, a February, and a March. That's the way I do it. I try to pick only road games and only against NBA talent. I have yet to see him face up from 17 feet and go to work. That's the NBA game. That's where he's going to kick ass. If he's a 3 who can go 17 feet, face up, beat you off the dribble, use that size, turn that shoulder, get that shoulder on you, beat you to the rack. Right? That's what he's got to do. Here's the other one that's stunning to me, and I actually don't, you guys have to understand, I watch no college basketball. I could not tell you before I do this video what Jabari shot. I cannot tell you how many points a game he gets. I mean, I can see it every now and then, throw on a graphic that he scored 20 plus in the first 7 games. I mean, I'm at the Arizona game and I see that, and then now I'm watching Michigan game, and then I'll go to the Virginia game. And okay, number 3, he's not a good rebounder at all. In fact, he's verging on bad. I have yet to see him grab an out-of-area rebound. I have too often seen him and it's actually very hard on video to try to get this to show you guys, where there are plays where he's there, but he's not in, the ball goes over, and maybe sometimes Duke gets it or somebody else gets it. And so it's very hard on a TV screen. This is where you really have to see something live to be able to tell, like, should have he made that play? But I have not seen him get any out-of-area rebounds yet. Now, if he's a 3, how good a rebounder does he have to be? But I don't know. I'm going to rue the day I did this, right? I mean, he's going to come in the league, score 21 points, score 7 rebounds, get 3 assists, and people are going to be like, "What the was wrong with you?" I got it. I'm on the opposite side of everyone on this. I'm not in any way. I'm not done. I'm not making a declarative statement about his future yet. Okay? I made the declarative statement about Derek Williams when he was the number 2 pick of the draft, and I was right. Okay? Let's remember that. I'm not crazy, totally crazy. So I'm just saying I'm watching him right now. I love what I see, and then I pull back and go, wait a sec, how does that work in the NBA? Okay, the grab a rebound at 6'8" and go is totally awesome. There's like 7 fast breaks a game in the NBA, actually, if you get out to it. It's awesome. Can win you a basketball game or 2. It's awesome. The defensive issue, at first I was like, it's not that bad. Here's what's really interesting to me about the defensive issue, and I'm going to have to go back and watch my film on this. I think it's a second half of game issue, not a defensive issue right now. His defense that I have seen in second half of games is dreadful. Well, is he out of shape? And then that begs the other question. How can you possibly be out of shape at 19 years old? And I understand if you're out of shape at 19 years old and you came from socioeconomic challenge times where we can go through. Should I throw every stereotype to the wing? To every stereotype, okay? You're from a low-income house, mom's working, there's no dad, grandma's there, they're working, you're grabbing crappy McDonald's, and I don't want to say that because I'll probably get in trouble, but whatever, fast food chain you want to come up with, and you didn't eat well, and you go to college, and you finally eat well, and you're out of shape. That's not Jabari Parker. Right? Fabulous home. Chicago, every training regimen possible. Why is he out of shape? All right. I don't want to beat him up. I think get the big point. His talent is great. I'm just not sure. So here's an interesting question from Justin Brown. I agree with you about Parker. Does he fall to 5? Scouts have to understand this. Maybe. I doubt it because there's a group mentality. But actually, my funny thing on this is if I'm right on this, if I'm right on this, then 5's even an issue. Right? Like if his game truly is non-translatable in some extent, that he's got to play the 3 and he's not beating you off the dribble as a 3. And here's an interesting one, by the way. If you watch my Andrew Wiggins video, I think he went about 1 of 9 on catch and shoots in that video. Jabari's 0 of like 7 or 8 that I watched. None of these guys can catch and shoot. None of them at all. You know why? They never have to. They're all rhythm bouts. I think they can learn that. I'm not concerned about that. I think that's just a practice thing. When would Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker ever be told to sit on the wing and off a Trey Burke penetration off Derek Favors, kick out to Jabari for 3 like that? He doesn't do that, right? That's not his game. That's not Andrew Wiggins' game. They can't do it, though. They're terrible at it. And what's interesting is they're not particularly close. Ron Boone always tells me, watch this about a shooter. Does he miss close and similarly? Does that make sense? So LeBron the other night missed everything front rim. That's why I was like, okay, something's wrong with him. But is the guy missing right one time, left the next time, back rim one time, front rim the next? Keep an eye on that. That's important. That means he's just a cockeyed all over the place. Jabari's shot's pretty good. Off the bounce, both those guys are sick. Okay, here's my Andrew Wiggins worry. And this is a weird one considering the P3 video, and it just might be a strength issue. But we see the P3 video where he's got this 40-inch plus vertical leap, right? Go watch the posterized Grantland, and the whole thing's about Tracy McGrady's dunk on Sean Bradley. And Tracy McGrady is the guy who I think Andrew Wiggins is Tracy McGrady. I think he'll average 25 a game. I think he'll be great. Except for On that play, McGrady just explodes, same way kind of Wiggins does, to the basket, goes over 7-6 Bradley. The exact same play is in the draft video that I did on Andrew Wiggins, and he doesn't dunk it. And I say in the video, I think he should dunk this. I now know he should dunk that if he's going to be as good as we think he is. There's this funny game with Wiggins where somehow with the basketball, the same athleticism is not happening. All right, we're long. What else do I have for you? By the way, Dario Saric, another huge night. Keep an eye on him. All right, let's go play with a quick film study. Film study today is Kevin Durant, after the game, made the comment that it was on him. And this is where the portion of the game in which Westbrook points at his head as they walk off. Now, truthfully, because I was watching the Grantland video, I have not had time to see this yet. So let's see what we get. This is going to be, we're going to see 3 plays here. 2 Danny Green, in theory, if it loads up, 2 Danny Green threes, and then my favorite play I've ever seen, ever, in the NBA. Maybe ever. So it does not seem to be loading. Let me see if I can get it to play. All right, we're on the small screen. I'll see if I can go bigger here for you. And see if we get buffering and we get a play or not. Right now, this podcast, which has been quite fun today, has ground to a halt. All right, I'm going to try it again. My ugly mug is back on the screen. Let's go for my favorite play I've ever seen. I just loved this play. This play, to me, is absolutely everything that I want out of an NBA player. Everything I want out of an NBA player. All right, it is coming up. All right, so here are the, and again, I have not previewed this, but you have it here. What this play is, the beautiful play here is that this is the end of second quarter. Spurs are blowing it out. They get an offensive rebound. Ginobili's bringing it out. He has the wherewithal to look at the clock, see the time, be coached well enough to know that that's a 2-for-1 window, and in the most awesome fashion I've seen, know himself to do it. So here it's inside to Duncan. Ginobili penetrates, misses, rebound bounces around. They throw it back out. Parker penetrates. It's a total madhouse scramble. This is a crazy play. Rebound. Ginobili gets it. There's 38.7 seconds on the clock. 2-for-1. Who thinks 2-for-1 on the third chance of a possession? Looks at the clock. Right there. Hey, wait a sec. 2-for-1. Bang! How flippin' awesome is that? That is incredible. All right, now let's watch and see if Durant's actually got any blame at all in this thing. Here's Durant. He's guarding Diaw. Goes down. Perfect play by Durant. Stays in there. Ginobili drives. He fends off Durant. The rebound is loose. It's not his fault. Kick back out to Parker. Durant's back over on Ginobili now. Rebound comes down. Durant probably should have got that rebound. He doesn't come out to guard, and he gets banged on the 3. So, yeah, that's a little bit on Durant. That's too bad. I was kind of hoping it was on Durant. I like KD. All right, let's go see if we can get the other 2 to pull up that Durant took the blame for. Buffering is always a good sign. So it's 5-point game. This was the Spurs were just brilliant. I mean, the game was over. You didn't have to watch the second half. So Durant's got Green over here. Ginobili rolls to the baseline, double teamed, cross-court pass. Oh, that is just one of the sickest passes you've seen. How awesome is Manu Ginobili? This is why he's going to be a Hall of Famer. This is why Gordon Hayward wears 20. Watch this play again. Now, it's true. Durant does get totally lost on this. But Watch the other side of this. This is where I don't know if this is guys who've played together. They've won more playoff games together than any team in the history of the NBA or any threesome. But this is where they are better than anyone in the league. I don't know if you hire one of their coaches, you get this. Watch this play. It's a double stagger at the free throw line. Ginobili comes across for the ball. Nice picks. They're not great picks. Diaz actually is semi-moving. Catches. They've dropped off Diaz. The Spurs, they're playing this great. Watch Duncan on the far side. Ginobili's on the left side. He drives the baseline. He's double teamed. Duncan goes and sets a back pick on Durant that frees Green. No one's talking about. That is an incredible pick by Duncan. Insane, really. Who's thinking of that? Whose offense has that? Oh, that is beautiful. Gosh, that is great basketball. That's not Durant's fault. That's them. This is a great example of what I opened the show with. This is not Durant's fault. This is the other guys being great.
Westbrook is so close.
All right, here's the other one. Let's see whether or not Durant really deserves Russell Westbrook pointing at him. Pick and roll. Westbrook gets beat. I'm going to point at Westbrook here. I hate people who single out their teammates in national. That's really what's going on there. So Westbrook gets beat. Adams cuts him off beautifully. Here's Green over here. Look at their spacing. It's just awesome. Kind of as close to a side pick and roll as you get. They've got Diaw out here. Ginobili on that wing. Green on this wing. Parker steps out, kicks it to the wing. That's not Durant's fault. That's just great basketball. In fact, that's Westbrook's fault as much as anyone. Right? Should Westbrook have dealt with his pick better? He's a little slow off the Diaw pick high. Nice step out by whomever is guarding Diaw. Westbrook gets back on him. Gets hit on the next pick by Duncan. Another beautiful offensive set. Again, it all stems back to Duncan's picks. Adams there. So Durant should have stayed in here. And then Parker beats him. I'm not sure I see anybody's fault. I see a great play. Let's watch it one more time, by the way, to see the pick action. This is, again, do you have to go get some coach who understands this stuff? Because they're the only people running this awesome set. Here's the first pick. It's basic, high pick and roll. But where's the floor space? It's all, Carlisle does some of this too. False action, because here's the real play. The real play is now Duncan coming back at really what's a high pick and roll, back up above. Parker takes it to the wing. Duncan sets a great pick, and now the floor is spaced. But Westbrook's been trailing this entire play because of the fact that the first pick was set so well. All right, thanks, you guys. I will be back with you tomorrow, and then I'm off for a week. See ya. Thanks for tuning in. Nice audiences the last few days. I really appreciate all of you who've stayed with us during the offseason. Our numbers are actually as big in the offseason as they are during the season. See ya.